4 simple foods. That's all it took to outlive 3 doctors, 2 husbands, and every piece of medical advice I've ever been given. My name is Martha Jenkins, and at 103 years old, I wake up every morning at 5:47 a.m. Not because I have to, but because my body knows what it needs. The same 4 foods, the same quiet ritual, the same defiance that's kept me breathing when everyone said I should have stopped years ago. Dr. Peterson stares at my blood work like it's written in a foreign language. Martha, he says, adjusting his glasses, your cholesterol should have killed you 20 years ago. Your blood pressure readings make no sense. What exactly are you eating? I don't tell him about the butter. I don't mention the eggs. I certainly don't explain about the bacon grease I save in that old mason jar by the stove. He wouldn't understand. Nobody does. They see a 103-year-old black woman who should be grateful for every breath, following every rule, taking every pill they hand me like communion wafers. But I stopped listening to them the day my first doctor told me I had 6 months to live. That was in 1987. He's been dead for 15 years now. The smell of bacon fat hitting a cast iron skillet, that's the first thing that fills my kitchen every morning. Not the gentle sizzle of modern cooking, but the aggressive pop and crackle of fat that remembers when food had flavor. My great-grandmother taught me to save the grease. Don't waste what the good Lord gives you, child, she'd say, watching me scrape every precious drop into that jar. She lived to 98 back when 98 was a miracle. I'm starting to think she knew something the rest of the world forgot. Food number 1, bacon grease. 2 tablespoons in the skillet, heated until it shimmers like liquid gold. The doctors call it poison. I call it medicine. Every morning for the past 40 years, that grease has coated the inside of my stomach like armor against whatever the day wants to throw at me. My grandmother lived through Jim Crow, the Depression, and 2 world wars on bacon grease and determination. She taught me that survival isn't about following rules, it's about knowing which ones to break. While the grease heats, I crack 2 eggs, not the pale, watery things they sell at the supermarket, but real eggs from Mrs. Henderson's chickens down the road. Food number 2. The yolks are orange as summer sunsets, thick enough to coat the back of a spoon. Dr. Peterson nearly fainted when I told him about the eggs. 2 eggs every day, Martha? Do you understand what that's doing to your arteries? I wanted to tell him my arteries have been carrying me through this world for 103 years, through segregation and integration, through burying children and grandchildren, through watching my neighborhood turn from a place where everyone knew your name to a place where they board up houses like coffins. My arteries have seen things his medical school never taught him about. The eggs slide into that hot grease with a satisfying hiss. I don't scramble them. Scrambling is for people who are in a hurry. And at 103, I've learned the value of taking my time. I let them cook low and slow, watching the whites set around the edges while the yolks stay soft and golden. There's something meditative about watching an egg cook properly. It teaches you patience. It teaches you that some things can't be rushed, no matter what the world outside your kitchen is demanding. Most people walk away when stories get this heavy. The fact that you're still listening, that means something. Hit subscribe. I've got more to tell. While the eggs finish cooking, I prepare food number 3. A thick slice of cornbread made from the same recipe my mother used during the Depression. Real cornbread, not the sweet cake they try to pass off as cornbread in restaurants, but dense, savory bread made with stone-ground cornmeal, real buttermilk, and enough bacon grease to make it hold together. I bake a pan every Sunday and eat from it all week, each slice getting a little drier, a little more substantial. This morning's slice goes right into that same skillet with the leftover grease. The sound it makes when it hits the hot iron, that soft sizzle followed by the smell of cornmeal toasting, that's the sound of my childhood. Mama would fry day-old cornbread for breakfast when money was tight and groceries were scarce. She'd pile our plates high with fried cornbread, top it with molasses if we were lucky, and call it a feast. Fill your belly with what you have, she'd say, not with what you wish you had. The fried cornbread turns golden brown on both sides, crispy on the outside but soft in the middle. I flip it once, just once. Flip it too many times and you're showing disrespect to the food and to yourself. My hands remember the exact moment when it's ready to turn, the way the edges curl up just slightly, the way the smell changes from raw cornmeal to something that could sustain a person through anything. Dr. Peterson asked me once about fiber, about whole grains, about all the things his medical journals tell him I should be eating. I wanted to laugh. This cornbread has more fiber than his conscience. It's made from corn that grew in real dirt, ground between real stones, mixed with buttermilk from cows that ate real grass. It's been feeding my family for generations, and it'll be feeding someone long after his medical degree is yellow with age. Food number 4 is what really makes him shake his head. A cup of coffee so strong it could wake the dead, sweetened with 3 tablespoons of real sugar. Not honey, not agave, not whatever artificial sweetener they're pushing this week. White sugar, the kind that comes from cane fields where my grandfather worked until his hands bled, the kind that sustained him through 18-hour days under a Mississippi sun that tried to kill him every morning he walked into those fields. I brew the coffee in an old percolator that belonged to my first husband's mother. The metal is dented from years of use. The handle wrapped in electrical tape where it cracked back in 1978, but it makes coffee the way coffee was meant to be made. Strong enough to strip paint, dark enough to see your future in, sweet enough to remind you that some pleasures in life are worth the risk. 3 tablespoons of sugar go into that cup every morning. Dr. Peterson says it's slowly killing me. I tell him everything is slowly killing all of us. The question is whether you want to die having tasted sweetness or having spent your last years afraid of every spoonful of joy. This is my breakfast every morning. The same four foods that have carried me through 103 years of a world that told me I wasn't supposed to live this long, wasn't supposed to survive this much, wasn't supposed to outlast the people who made the rules. Bacon grease, eggs, fried cornbread, and sweet coffee. The doctors call it a heart attack on a plate. I call it communion. But here's what nobody understands about these four foods. They're not just fuel, they're rebellion. Every morning when I heat that bacon grease, I'm rebelling against a medical system that wants to reduce me to numbers on a chart. When I crack those eggs with the orange yolks, I'm rebelling against a world that thinks artificial is better than real. When I fry that cornbread in the same skillet my grandmother used, I'm rebelling against the idea that old ways are always wrong ways. And when I stir 3 tablespoons of sugar into coffee strong enough to wake my ancestors, I'm rebelling against the notion that joy at my age should be measured in teaspoons. I read something that changed everything. It said patience after 60 is the fastest way to die forgotten. My doctor said wait. I stopped waiting. That guide is in the description below. The morning I stopped following medical advice was the morning I started living again. Dr. Harris, that was before Dr. Peterson, stood in my living room in 1995, clipboard in hand, explaining why I needed to eliminate fat from my diet. Mrs. Jenkins, he said, at your age, every gram of saturated fat is a risk we can't afford to take. I was only 75 then, practically a child by today's standards. But I remember looking at him, this young man in his pressed white coat who had never missed a meal, never wondered where his next dollar was coming from, never had to choose between medicine and groceries, and thinking, what does he know about risk? Risk is watching your husband die in a county hospital because they don't take colored patients at the good hospital. Risk is raising 6 children on a factory worker's salary while the factory owners get rich on your labor. Risk is living through a century where your very existence was considered a threat to other people's comfort. But eating bacon grease? That's not risk. That's breakfast. I started lying to doctors after that. Not big lies, small ones. Strategic ones. When they asked about my diet, I told them about the oatmeal I ate once a week and forgot to mention the bacon I ate every day. When they asked about exercise, I talked about my garden work and left out the part about cooking everything in animal fat. When they prescribed medications, I'd nod and smile and throw half the pills away. My body knew what it needed better than their computers did. The test results kept getting better. My blood pressure stabilized. My cholesterol levels became what Dr. Peterson calls mysteriously optimal. My bone density remained strong enough that I still tend my tomato garden without help. My mind stayed sharp enough to remember every slight, every kindness, and every lesson this long life has taught me. The doctors couldn't explain it. They'd study my charts like archaeologists examining artifacts from a lost civilization. It doesn't make sense, Martha. According to everything we know, you should be dead, I'd finish for them. Yes, ma'am, according to our models. Your models don't know about my life, doctor. Your models never worked in a tobacco field in August. Your models never buried 3 babies before they learned to walk. Your models never had to smile at people who called them names I won't repeat in this kitchen. Your models are based on people who had choices I never had. Maybe that makes a difference you can't measure. The truth is, these 4 foods connect me to something bigger than nutrition labels and medical studies. They connect me to every woman in my family who survived impossible things. When I heat that bacon grease, I can feel my great-grandmother's hands guiding mine. When I crack those eggs, I remember my mother teaching me the difference between cooking and nourishing. When I fry that cornbread, I taste the resilience that carried us through decades when resilience was the only currency we had. And when I drink that sweet coffee, I honor every morning my grandfather woke up before dawn to work in fields that would never belong to him. But that taught him the value of finishing what you start. These aren't just foods, they're sacraments. They're the communion between who I was and who I've become. They're the bridge between a world that tried to break me and the woman who refused to be broken. Every morning at 5:47 a.m., I perform this ritual not because I'm hungry, but because I'm grateful. Grateful for hands that can still crack eggs without trembling. Grateful for taste buds that can still distinguish between real food and the processed substitutes they try to convince us are better. Grateful for the memory of everyone who came before me and the hope that someone will come after me who understands what these 4 simple foods really represent. Dr. Peterson keeps pushing. Last month, he brought in a nutritionist, a young woman with bright eyes and a folder full of charts showing me why my breakfast is killing me. Mrs. Jenkins, she said, spreading her papers across my kitchen table like evidence at a trial. We need to talk about sustainable eating habits for someone your age. I let her talk. I let her explain about antioxidants and omega-3 fatty acids and inflammation markers. I nodded when she showed me pictures of colorful vegetables and talked about the Mediterranean diet. I listened as she described meal plans designed specifically for centenarians, backed by studies from people who never lived in a world where vegetables were luxury items and meat was salvation. When she finished, I poured myself another cup of coffee, 3 tablespoons of sugar, just like always, and asked her one question. Honey, how many 103-year-old people do you know? She admitted she'd never met anyone my age before. Then how can you tell me what's killing me when you've never met anyone who's lived this long? The room got quiet. Dr. Peterson shifted in his chair. The nutritionist shuffled her papers, and I kept drinking my sweet coffee, tasting the sugar dissolve on my tongue like a prayer answered. I've outlived every diet they've ever recommended, I continued. I've outlived the food pyramid, the low-fat craze, the low-carb revolution, and whatever new wisdom they're preaching this week. I've outlived doctors who told me eggs would kill me, nutritionists who said fat was the enemy, and experts who swore sugar was poison. I'm still here. They're not all still here. Maybe that should tell you something. After everything I went through, I found the 60-year rule. It has 9 rules that explain exactly why everything I believed was wrong after 60. It changed how I see my family, my health, my money, everything. Check the description. The young nutritionist closed her folder. Mrs. Jenkins, I'm just trying to help you live longer. I set down my coffee cup and looked at her, really looked at her. She reminded me of myself at that age, so sure that education could solve every problem, so convinced that there was a right way and a wrong way to do everything, so innocent about how much this world can teach you if you live long enough to pay attention. Child, I said, I'm not trying to live longer. I'm trying to live better. And for me, better means waking up every morning and eating food that connects me to my history, my family, and my joy. Better means not spending my last years afraid of every bite, worried about every pleasure, calculating every risk like I'm solving a math problem instead of living a life. Better means understanding that I've already won. I've already lived longer than anyone expected, loved deeper than anyone thought possible, and survived more than anyone should have to. These 4 foods aren't what's going to kill me. Fear is what kills people. Regret kills people. Spending your days worried about tomorrow instead of grateful for today, that's what kills people. I stood up from my kitchen table, my 103-year-old bones creaking like old wood settling in a house that's weathered too many storms. You want to know the secret to living this long? Stop asking permission. Stop waiting for experts to tell you it's okay to enjoy your life. Stop believing that surviving means following everyone else's rules about what's good for you. The nutritionist gathered her papers. Dr. Peterson made notes on his pad, and I started cleaning my breakfast dishes. The same cast iron skillet I've used for 40 years. The same coffee cup that's held more sweet coffee than either of them will drink in their lifetimes. The same plate that's nourished me through decades of mornings when getting out of bed was itself an act of defiance. They left that day with promises to research alternative approaches and consider individual factors in their recommendations. I haven't seen them since. My new doctor, Dr. Williams, a woman about my granddaughter's age, has a different approach. She asks about my breakfast, and I tell her the truth. Bacon grease, eggs, fried cornbread, sweet coffee. She writes it down without flinching. How do you feel? She asks. Strong, I tell her. How's your energy? Better than people half my age. Any pain? Only when I think about all the years I wasted listening to people who knew less about my body than I did. She laughs at that. Mrs. Jenkins, your test results are remarkable for someone your age. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Finally, a doctor with sense. These 4 foods have taught me something that medical school never could. Your body knows things your mind hasn't learned yet. Your history matters more than their statistics. Your joy is not negotiable, no matter what age you reach. And sometimes the simplest answer is the right answer, even when experts with degrees and certifications tell you it's wrong. Every morning at 5:47 a.m., I wake up grateful. Grateful for the bacon grease that still sizzles in my skillet. Grateful for eggs with yolks the color of sunlight. Grateful for cornbread that connects me to generations of women who knew how to make much from little. Grateful for coffee sweet enough to remind me that life, even at 103, should taste good. This is my breakfast. These are my four foods. This is my rebellion against a world that thinks age means surrender, thinks survival means sacrifice, and thinks wisdom means following rules written by people who've never lived as long as I have. I'm 103 years old. I eat bacon grease, eggs, fried cornbread, and sweet coffee every single morning. My doctor can't believe it, but I can, because I know something he's still learning. Sometimes the old ways are the right ways. Sometimes your grandmother's wisdom is worth more than medical degrees. And sometimes four simple foods can carry you through a century of living, not just surviving. Tomorrow morning, I'll wake up at 5:47 a.m. I'll heat my bacon grease until it shimmers. I'll crack my eggs with the orange yolks. I'll fry my cornbread until it's golden. I'll sweeten my coffee with 3 tablespoons of sugar, and I'll sit at this same kitchen table, grateful for another day to taste the sweetness of a life lived on my own terms. That's the secret to living this long, not avoiding death, welcoming life every morning, 4 simple foods at a time.